We all look for a purpose in life, but do we need a purpose to live? And what are the different layers of finding our purpose that we go through? We're going to look at 4 different phases of finding your purpose, including why a purpose may not be relevant or needed. And this brings me back to my journey when I was looking for my purpose, because that was like the biggest question that I had for a very long time. What is my purpose? Why am I here? What am I supposed to do with this time, with this life? And the starting stage that I went through, that we all go through, is where finding our purpose is the purpose. You may not know specifically what it is. No one knows specifically what it is to begin with. And then that's when we usually go through that journey of just trying a bunch of different things. For me, I started off doing software engineering as a university degree. And I was like, okay, maybe I want to pursue this. But as soon as I came to university, I was delving a lot more into personal development and things like that, changing my mindset, meditation. And slowly I realized that, oh, hey, I have options. Before I thought that, okay, I can either only choose A, B, or C. But now I'm like, oh, I do have the freedom or whatever option that I want to pick. And this is a benefit, especially of today's age with the internet. There really is no limit to what it is that you could learn and which way you could go. And so I tried a different thing. At one point I was like, I want to be a life coach, being inspired by Tony Robbins. And it's just hilarious because I hear, just like I have, there's so many people that have not experienced life in the early 20s that I just want to be a life coach. But I think what it was more for me was I'm seeing unhappy people. I've used tools that brought me from unhappiness to happiness, and I want to help others. And that was one thing I played around with. But then where my needle kind of stuck initially was holistic health. I got very passionate about holistic health after experiencing dietary changes which made me feel amazing, as well as looking at the so obviously common mistakes that we all make with diet, especially if you haven't educated yourself on it. And so I was like, okay, I want to do holistic health. I enrolled in a course, I invested time, money, etc. And then I came to a point where I was like, wait, hold on, I don't feel like this is it anymore. And that was a very scary moment for me, because I'm like, what am I supposed to do now? And this brought me to the second stage of when it comes to finding a purpose, or this topic of purpose in general, where you reach the stage where you fulfill a specific purpose or not, you just go further along in the direction, and then that feeling of purpose changes. So initially I was like, okay, holistic health is the thing. And then through synchronicity and magical events, meditation came into my life. And I was like, okay, this actually feels like it. But the thing is, those things that you do before it aren't just like wasted moments. They build, like holistic health is a very solid foundation that has benefited my meditation work. And so now that I enjoy and love meditation, what I realized after a while was that even though I'm sticking to meditation, that maybe I shouldn't be so specific with purpose. And that's when I kind of jumped to the next stage of where instead of having something specific as your purpose, you realize that there's just this natural direction that you're moving in. And rather than isolating a specific thing, saying this is my purpose, more so it's easier to be, and more accurate to be a bit more abstract, saying that, okay, I feel like I'm moving in this direction. and there's these different things that kind of match up to this direction, such as holistic health, such as meditation. And this direction for me was more so ways in helping humanity, be my neighbor or someone across the world through a video screen, on elevating their consciousness and making them feel more happy. So for me, it was whatever fits this and what I'm designed with, like what my configuration is, that then becomes my purpose, like anything that moves me in this direction. And that brings a lot more freedom, because there's a lot of like panic and worry, a lot of decision anxiety, like should I do this, should I do that, should I do that? And a lot of the times we tend to make it as if we have to stick to this one thing, but life isn't linear, life is non-linear. If you stick to an overall direction, all these things that seem random when you look in hindsight will end up seeming as if it was like perfectly matched for you. And then as I continued on my journey, going from finding my purpose to being the purpose, having my purpose change after I fulfilled it or gone through enough of a specific direction, then to having a more abstract purpose and a direction rather than a specific purpose, I came to the fourth stage, which is there being no purpose. What do I mean by that? Just by being present, you automatically fulfill what it is that you are meant to fulfill. As I journey towards enlightenment and the various stages working up to enlightenment, you come to the realization that everything is. There is no separate identity per se that is trying to fulfill a purpose. Everything is just unfolding as it naturally is, as it naturally will, as it naturally should be. And it's almost like you become an animal, in the sense that when you have a rooster's natural behavior is to go every morning at 3 a.m, disturbing your sleep. Similarly, we all have this natural function. For me, for Manvir, it's teaching meditation, it's having certain thoughts and ideas that lead to certain actions, it's having learned holistic health, it's creating this YouTube video. As you worked more and more towards this isness, you release layers of the mind and a lot of the doubts and confusions that are there. You realize that there is already a natural direction, a natural movement and unfolding of your life, of your purpose, and that it doesn't necessarily need to be decided. But again, nothing's mutually exclusive here. You having decisions and goals is just as much as your purpose as you not. But the main idea is nothing is forced. You don't feel this feeling of contraction, like, I gotta do this. It's an openness, and whatever falls into your plate, falls into your plate. And this brings us to an interesting question of free will. Because where does free will come into this place if everything is just unfolding as it is? At this stage, there is no more free will, simply because there's no difference between the observer and the observed. There is no separate I which is trying to will its way, which is using this fixated mind to make a difference in the external, because at this stage there is no difference between external and internal. Everything is unfolding. And I'm of the opinion that free will oftentimes causes everyone a resistance to what is already for them. It creates a anomaly. You do things that are maybe not so much for your path. And this is simply just through trial and error that I've observed. There's so many ways that we're conditioned that we don't even realize. We've been brought up a certain way. We consume certain information. So we can never be 100% sure that our mind actually knows what it is that we want, and that our desires are not influences of what we've been programmed and conditioned to, because it's literally been happening since, well, even since we're in the womb, we're probably being conditioned with the thoughts, feelings, and consumption of our parents and mothers. So for me, I'm of the opinion of it's best to surrender your free will to whichever higher power or source that resonates with you, your higher self, God, whatever, the universe, until you get to this stage of isness, until there is nothing to surrender to, because everything just is. And I would say test this out, do some trial and error. I had a very logical mind, so I didn't just jump straight into surrender, let me just see what happens. I used my free will. I made decisions that, okay, I'm very passionate about this. Oh, this excites me the most. I want to do this. I worked towards it. I saw what happened along the way. For me, I was releasing every time I felt uncomfortable or I felt resistance or not nice. I always did shadow work and unrooted things that I felt were maybe in the way of me willing my way forwards. And so I would do that, but I would still feel out of alignment. And so then I switched path. I'm like, okay, let me try a bit more of a surrendered way. Let me try a bit more of the illogical way. I know logically that step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4 is efficient, but let me try this illogical way instead. And so through this illogical way, you skip a lot of things that you think you're meant to do. For example, when it comes to marketing or business, instead of doing things a very specific way, you have your funnel, you have your opt-in, you send email campaigns. None of that resonated for me, that I need this right now. So I skipped that all and did what felt right for me. And what do you know? I felt in alignment, everything felt right. I realized that, oh, okay, this is actually more efficient. Even though logically I was like, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4 is efficient. That's based on past. It's not based on now. Anything from your mind is based on the past or past experiences. So maybe step 1, step 5, step 3, step 8 was more of the efficient order. And so through a bit of trial and error, your mind will begin to loosen up and surrender a bit more, trust your intuition and your guidance a bit more. Until we realize that, hey, maybe there is nothing as purpose, maybe we don't need a purpose to live. I had an interesting quote, which actually kind of inspired this video, which was that a lot of the time first of all, purpose is more of like a Western creation. And a lot of the times we've created this purpose because we're living lives that are just not satisfying. We're living life in a very miserable way, you could say. And it's almost like we need a purpose to make an excuse for living in this way of being out of alignment. But as I've shared with you, we've got tools, we've got methods, we've got ways of whichever situation you're in, being in alignment. So to summarize, we discussed 4 phases when it comes to purpose. First is finding your purpose, being the purpose. Then having your purpose change as you may fulfill your purpose or what you thought was your purpose. Then we come to having a more abstract way of looking at purpose, being that, okay, I'm moving in this overarching direction, and that opens you up to whatever what may fit for you going in that direction. It may be completely random things from a subjective perspective, but from a bird's eye view, it's actually fitting in you moving in this direction. And nothing is ever wasted. The purpose thing kind of builds upon each other. Then we go to the final stage where you realize, well, there is actually no purpose. Everything actually just is. And by you just being, you are moving with accordance to the flow of life, to the unfolding of what is natural for you. And of course, it does require a lot of trust and faith, and even some testing with trial and error, just to see if, okay, is this actually working? And then we touched upon free will a bit, realizing that at this stage there is no free will, because there is no difference between the observer and the observed. It's more, like I mentioned, almost like this animal nature, where it's like a rooster makes a sound every morning to wake you up, whereas you yourself, as this body, as in my case Manvir, its natural motion is creating this video, is teaching meditation, is a bunch of other things. So if this has served you, be sure to like, comment and subscribe, as well as share with someone who may need to hear this message, because you do good for someone else, good comes back to you. So until next time,